Hello, I'm JAMILA Musayeva, an international social etiquette consultant and the author of 2 etiquette books, Etiquette, The Least You Need to Know, and Afternoon Tea Etiquette. My books are only available in English language here in Azerbaijan in hardcover print. If you would like to order a signed copy, please email me. The link is down below as well in the description box. If you are a new viewer on my channel, I talk about etiquette, soft skills, and self-development. If you're interested in all topics like that, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button to get notified when I upload a new video. If you're an old viewer, welcome back to my channel. I'm delighted to have you here. I have started a new series of videos where I read a book and after that I do a video on my takeaway lessons from the book. I want to stress the word my because these videos are very subjective. They tell my standpoint. They show my perspective on the book. It's going to be very different for you when you read the book. But I think it's important to share my lessons or things that I thought were important and interesting because it always starts a conversation when discussing a book. So in today's video, we will discuss my ultimate favorite book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. I've recommended this book to everyone, all my friends, my family. I think this book is a must-have for everyone in their library, in their bookshelf. It's very easy to read, very easy to follow, but it has some amazing ideas in it. And because there's a lot to cover and we don't have much time on YouTube, I decided to condense the ideas and sort of name them into sections for the takeaway lessons that I learned from the book. So I'll read it from here and then I'll get into each segment separately. So first one is You Are What You Do. Second section will be Little Gains Over Large Leaps. Want versus be. Notice and call out. It's an important technique. Stack your habits. Environment matters and law of least effort. Avoid temptations, do not resist them. Make the habit attractive. Mind the group. Frequency over everything. Getting started. Keep track and get a partner. Habit that speak to you. And finally, fall in love with a routine. Number 1 is you are what you do. And that is so true. You often hear the word you are what you eat. And that is true about your health and the way you look, your figure. When we think of a larger, broader idea, you are what you do. So that includes your eating habit, your drinking habit, if you're smoking, if you're working out, if you're reading. All of this amalgam of your activities day in and day out eventually decide the quality of your life and who you are as a person. James Clear argues that the quality of your life depends on the quality of your habits. So if you have bad habits, the quality of your life is not going to be as good. And he says if you want to have a better life, you have to get rid of those bad habits and incorporate the good ones. This made me think of another quote that I absolutely love, and it says, "Nothing changes if nothing changes." And it's so true. If you want to have a healthier body, if you continue carry on with your bad habits, eating improperly or not working out or not taking care of your body, mind and soul, you're not going to have a healthy body. So nothing will change unless you change or your actions change. And I think that applies largely to all the habits that we have, activities that we do day in and day out. You are eventually an amalgam of everything you do on a daily basis. Second important lesson, larger message that I learned is that little gains are more important than large leaps, or perhaps as important. Oftentimes we overlook the little gains that we make and in search of getting to that bigger goal. And when we do that, we just acknowledge the goal and forget about the little steps that we took. But actually, if you think about it, the goal that you've reached was made up of those little steps. So it's important to be grateful for them and it's important to recognize them. He talks about this ancient Greek parable called SORITES paradox. The power of one coin to make a man wealthy. It's eventually the amalgam of all these little coins that makes the person wealthy. I've actually tried this at home. I have a little place or a cup where I would put the coins that I get for change. And over a month, I kid you not, the amount of cash that I was able to make out of these little coins was immense. It's something we oftentimes ignore or overlook. The change in the form of coins is lying around everywhere in the house, but when you put them together and when you take them to a cashier to change it into cash, you'll see that you have a lot of money. When I was reading about marginal gains that James is talking about, I was thinking about this Azerbaijani quote that says, "Drop by drop, a lake is formed." It essentially means that little steps that you're taking brings you to a bigger gain. So I think this applies to every culture, every society, every person. You have to recognize and be grateful for the little steps that you're taking, the little gains that you're making, because it is taking you to your final goal. This third lesson I've named want versus be. And I think this is an important distinction we need to make when we are formulating our idea of what we want to achieve in life. And he says, for example, if someone says, I want to earn a lot of money, it's very different from saying, I want to be a wealthy person. Being is an identity, wanting is a desire. You can have a continuous desire over the years to do something, but never getting there. But when you identify yourself with a certain image, with a certain success, with a certain idea that you have in your mind of who you want to be, that brings a lot more desire into action. He says that your identity is your repeated beingness. So things that you're doing day in and day out is making you who you are. And that the belief about who you are, about yourself, is very much learned and conditioned by the society, the experience that you have had as a person. And it's ultimately really up to you to make that choice, to believe in who you want to be. Even though the society has made you think that you're one kind of a person, if you have an idea of who you want to be, and by saying the be, I want to stress the word be. So instead of wanting to be that person, you're being that person, that will drive you into action, changing your life and taking on good habits. I learned this also in another psychology class, that sometimes people just want to want. It's an interesting thought. Sometimes people just want to want something instead of be something or become something. Let's say you always want to have a fitter body. You just continuously want that without really doing anything about it. But if you want to be a person with a fit body, you want to be a fit person, it changes your mindset, it shifts you and makes you take actions. The fourth interesting lesson that I've learned, and it's actually a technique, is called notice and call out. It comes into about bringing awareness to your actions, be it good habits or bad habits. When it comes to children, I like to stress all the good things that they're doing. So I would call them out on the good things that they're doing, therefore reinforcing that activity, because they always want to hear how great they are, how amazing they are. They continue doing that good habit that they're doing. But for adults, we're a little bit different. Our minds work a little bit more different. So it's good to call out yourself even on the bad things that you're doing, bad habits. So therefore, raising your own awareness and alertness about what you're doing wrong. Noticing and calling out loud something is an amazing technique that I've tried in my life. So when I'm leaving the house, I would think of all the things that I need to do. I'll be saying, I have my phone with me, I have my keys with me, I have my laptop with me, did I shut down the lights? So I turned off the TV. Calling out all these activities makes me do a checklist of all the activities before I leave the house, therefore ensuring that I have everything with me when I've left the house, as well as making sure that I leave the house secure and clear when I leave it. So when I was preparing the video on atomic habits, I was looking up other possible summaries that were out there, because I wanted to see what were the lessons that other readers took away from the book and compare it with the ones that I had. And I stumbled upon this website called Shortform, which is actually the sponsor of this video, so I thank them very much for adding value to the reader's experience. The reason I fell in love with this website is because it offers amazingly clear, very logical, comprehensive, easy to understand summaries of the books. They are not very brief, so they go in depth, but also they're very easy to read. What is amazing about Shortform, it has a huge library to choose from. There are all popular books out there, as well as all different kinds of genres. I personally love the one on self-improvement, business, as well as education, but there's so many more to choose from, and you don't have to buy the book immediately. What you can do is you can look up the summary on Shortform, see if you like the book, and then make the purchase. Shortform publishes new books and articles every week, and subscribers get to vote on what books to cover, which is amazing because it gives you as a subscriber a voice in the decision-making process. To join Shortform 5-day free trial, make sure to use my special link. I'll link it down below here as well in the description box below. By using Shortform, you can enhance your knowledge on the books that you've already read, refresh your memory, and be able to just get an idea of what are some popular books that people are reading right now and stay on top of the game. With that being said, let's go back to our video on atomic habits. Another important lesson that I've learned from this book is stacking your habits. I've actually never read about this technique before, so it was completely new information for me. And what James suggests to do is, after a current habit that you have, you introduce a new habit. So you say, after I do this that you've been doing for a really long time, I'll do this new habit. This helps you ease or get into the mood of incorporating the new habit into your life much more easily. He says, for example, if at certain time you're drinking coffee, you can say, after I drink my coffee, I will work out. So drinking coffee is a habitual thing that you've been doing for a while, and then workout is something that you want to introduce. It's a new habit. I have adjusted it a little bit to suit my lifestyle because it's quite busy. What I've done is, while I'm doing my old habit, I'm incorporating a new one. So let's say I'm drinking my coffee in the morning. It usually takes me about 15 to 20 minutes because it's sort of my meditation time. While I'm drinking the coffee, I've started a new habit of watching a TED Talk meanwhile. So I'm watching a TED Talk, taking interesting lessons or notes on what I've learned from the video while enjoying my cup of coffee instead of, scrolling through Instagram or just, browsing the internet. To give you another example, let's say I'm washing dishes or I'm making the bed. I'll put on a podcast either in Spanish or French or German sometimes and try to see if I can understand from what I'm listening. So I am practicing my language skills, my listening skills, meanwhile making the bed or washing the dishes. So it's doing something that I have to do, linking it with something that I want to incorporate into my daily activity. Another strong technique or the formula that he gives here is saying, I will do current habit, time and location. The reason he makes you write it out or say it out loud to be so specific about the time and the location is that the more detailed you are about your new habit, the more likely it is that you will do it. Another important lesson that he talks about is how our environment matters and the law of least effort. I'll explain it in a little bit. James says that habits are context dependent, so they depend on the environment we're in. Or in other words, he says that our environment shapes the habits that we have. To illustrate this using a real life example, if you surround yourself with people that smoke oftentimes, you're most likely or more likely to start smoking as well, to join the crowd. If you surround yourself with people that are adamant about yoga, you're most likely to get into yoga. So our environment gives us cues about which habits we need to take on. When I talk about the environment, I don't necessarily mean just the people that are around you, but also the objects, the things that are around you also give you cues about your habit. Say you're a smoker and you want to get rid of smoking. Having a pack of cigarettes somewhere in the house or at an eyesight is not going to help you get rid of that habit. So when something is at your eyesight or something is at your reach level, you're more likely to grab it and do it. The same applies for good habits. Say you want to start working out. Having your workout gear, your yoga mat, whatever it is that you need to have close at your eyesight, easy to reach, is going to increase the chances of you of doing yoga. The same applies for your bad habits. If you want to cut down the amount of coffee that you drink, for example, do not buy any coffee and don't have anything at home, so it's more difficult for you to get it. If there's a coffee shop on your street, make sure to avoid that street, so therefore it's much more difficult for you to get there and get coffee. The law of least effort comes in handy. It means that whenever some kind of action requires more effort than we want to, then it's least likely that we're going to do it. For bad habits, you want to make sure that it's more difficult for you to get to do it. For good habits, you want to make it more easily and accessible for you to do it. This takes me to another important lesson, is that to avoid temptations, not to resist them. James explains that if we use the self-restraint, a lot of times we will exhaust this muscle or this skill, and it will lead to a burnout. We will not be able to continuously self-restrain ourselves from things that we want and desire. So in order not to get into that trap, we have to avoid it altogether, not to resist it. And there's a difference. I'll explain this point using a real-life example. For example, you want to cut down the amount of sweets that you eat, and you just buy them and store them in the cupboard at home, thinking I'll only take them out when I have guests over. Reality is that you open that cupboard on a daily basis or every once in a while, and every time you open it, you see them, you want them, especially if you have a sweet tooth. And what happens is that you need to exercise the self-restraint in order not to reach out and grab a piece. What would be a better case scenario where you would avoid the temptation altogether is not to buy any sweets at home and not to have anything, so you don't have to actually exercise self-restraint. I think this is such a strong point, especially when it comes to restricting yourself with a particular diet. When I find people going on very restrictive diets, what will happen eventually is they will burn out, especially if they're tempted to try different kinds of foods. The self-restraint that they have to exercise every single day, because we eat every single day, for 3 times or 4 times a day, or how many times a day you eat, is very difficult and exhausting. So to have a better relationship with the food, it's better not to get into any restrictive diet and be mindful eater. Another important and interesting lesson is making your habits attractive. When your habits are attractive to you, you're more likely to continue them. And attractiveness is actually measured by the reward, and not the actual fact of getting the reward, but rather the anticipation. So thinking that you will get the rewarded is what keeps you going. So for example, you tell yourself, I have to write this essay, this paper. After I finish writing it, I get myself an ice cream. So you have to do what you have to do, and then you'll reward yourself with something that you really want. However, you have to be very careful when you're constructing this, your reward system, is because if your goal is to actually get fitter, then perhaps thinking that after a workout for an hour I'll have a bucket of ice cream is not a healthy way of constructing your rewards. Your rewards should be appropriate to your goals. So for me personally, whenever I have scheduled a video shooting or something that I have to do for work, I'll say I'll do this shoot and then I'll meet up with my friends, get coffee or lunch together. So this is a way of rewarding myself with socializing with people. Or let's say I have to write a paper and then I'll say I'll make myself a cup of tea and enjoy it with a little bit of chocolate. So you have to construct your words carefully, but make sure that you reward yourself after a new habit or a good habit that you need to incorporate into your daily life, so that anticipation of the reward keeps you going. Another interesting takeaway lesson for me was the importance of your group. Mind the group, mind the people you surround yourself with. We talked about the environment, but also a very important aspect of that environment are the people we associate ourselves with. And he names 3 categories, that is the close, the many, and the powerful. We're most likely to be influenced by the people who are close to us, the powerful that we know of in the world, and the many, so what the majority of people are doing. If majority of people are into something, we're most likely want to get into the habit of doing it. We humans are like sponges. We attract, we soak in the qualities and the abilities and the habits of people we surround ourselves with. So be mindful of that. Let's say you are not very avid reader, but you really like to get into reading. Join a book club. If you're not very good into workout, maybe you'll find someone who is into workout and get into the group of this, workout people. If you want to start painting, get yourself into a painting class or people that are into painting. You're most likely to start this new habit that you aspire to have when you join the group of people that are already practicing it. Another important lesson I've learned from James from this book is frequency over everything, and this advice has helped me a lot in my life, especially to get me into the workout, because I would get tired of the intensive workout that would last for an hour. So I understood that intensity is not that important, it's the frequency that matters. Eventually, the frequency is what is going to make the difference. He says that the most important form of learning is actually through practice and not planning. The amount of time that you will spend planning, writing, thinking, drafting is not going to be counted, it's not going to be shown in the result as much as the actual doing of it. And it made me think of all the times I've saved the posts for workouts, for cooking, for all the kinds of things that I would like to do, but I've actually never done them. I would just save the posts, write them out, and not get into doing it. And then at one point I thought, okay, enough of planning. I just have to start from somewhere, start from scratch, so to speak. And that's when I really started learning, is when I started practicing it. This advice is also especially helpful for people that are into business plans and think that that's the most important element of business. In fact, it is an important element, but not as much, because, of course it's great for you to plan, to draft, have a vision, plan it all out, think how it's going to work. But in reality, life comes in and a lot of other circumstances come in that were not expected, for example, like COVID, and then your business plan is just out the door. What is important is to have a vision, to have a goal, to have achievable and possible steps of action, but eventually leave some space into, practice. Start from somewhere. Just do it, and then in the process you will know what are some things that you need to change, what are some things that you need to adapt. That is the only way of learning, through practice. This brings me to another idea, and that is get started. And he talks about, if you want to have a new habit, do it for less than 2 minutes. You have to stop it at the point that it feels like you're doing work. Because when you start feeling like it's like a work that you have to do, then you'll not enjoy it and eventually you'll give it up, especially in the beginning. He says that if you start by doing something for less than 2 minutes, it will not feel like work to you, then that ritual of starting will keep you going. So you'll get into the habit of starting this activity. And he says, standardize until you optimize. So before you think I'm going to do it great, just start and do it frequently until you're able to do it better and better and better. I love this phrase that he says, you cannot improve a habit that doesn't exist. And it's so obvious. Of course, if there's no habit, there's no way to improve it. So just start somewhere, do it frequently until you get so much better at it. I think it reminds me a lot of the Japanese idea of Kaizen. You will do one thing at a time, day in and day out, until you optimize it and make it the best way possible. The next important lesson that he talks about is tracking your habit and getting a partner that you can be accountable to. Keeping track is very important so that you can stay consistent. He says if you miss your habit once, it's an accident. If you miss twice, it's a bad habit already. And tracking is important. It's better for you to get a calendar or your notebook, take a pen and mark it. Mark it. When you write it out, you will be accountable to what you've been doing. And it's important to be accountable to your own self, but it's very helpful when you get a partner, someone you can trust, a friend, a family, a relative, an acquaintance that you can report to, and they can keep track of you to make sure that you're doing the habit that you said you will be doing. I think this is why support groups are so important, because in a support group, all these people are accountable to each other. And when you feel like you're accountable to other people, you are more aware and alert about your actions. I personally think it's why a lot of people are sharing their activities online, is because when you share a post about, let's say, you cooking healthy, or you eating healthy, or you running, or you doing some activity that you have incorporated into your life, when you share it with your audience or with people online, you feel now accountable and you think that they're watching you. So now you have to continuously do that because you've already shown that you're doing it. I think it has helped me personally, for example, with biking. When I just started, I would do it on and off, but then because I would share this and the community would say how they're inspired and now they're biking too and they love it too, I think it has made me more responsible, and now I feel like I have to bike and report it every time that I do, so that people around me that got inspired from me will continue doing it. So in a way, it's a two-way street. I am getting them inspired to start a good habit, and they are watching me do it. So now we're accountable to each other and it works perfectly well. The next thing that he talks about is finding habits that speak to your natural abilities. I agree to it. I think it's much easier to start a habit where you're already good at, but I don't think you have to restrict yourself to only the things that you're good at. For example, personally, I am not very athletic at all, but thinking that because I'm not athletic, I will not do sports is a restrictive, is a fixed mindset. I want to think that even if I'm not very naturally capable of doing really well, I can still do it if I put my mind into it. But the idea here is that when you find a habit that is speaking to your natural abilities, it's going to be much easier for you to start, much more enjoyable, and therefore the satisfaction that you're getting from doing it is because it comes with an ease, you're more likely to continue doing it. So I want to give a personal example, and you can apply it to your daily life as well. I know that I have a natural ability of learning languages. I'm quite good with languages and they come easy to me. So now that I've already learned some languages, I am now putting a new challenge and adding new languages to my list of the ones that I already know. You might be very good at playing piano or some other kind of instrument. What you could do, so you have a natural inclination to music, what you could do is add another instrument to your portfolio of the instruments that you play. So basically following your natural skills and just increasing the span of the things that you do. The final takeaway lesson from this book is fall in love with boredom and fall in love with a routine. This was a mind-blowing phrase to me, and I have incorporated it into anything that I do, and sometimes I get bored with something and I think to myself, what James has said is so true. You know, he says that when you're doing something day in and day out on a daily basis, it becomes a routine, and routine is always boring. So sometimes you have to fall in love with the routine and the boredom in order to become better, a master of what you want to do. He says that professionals stick to schedule. They don't just go motivated every single day, you know. And I thought about it. I thought, you know, when Mozart was a little boy, his dad made him play for hours and he hated it. There's a lot about the relationship between Mozart and his dad. And I'm sure a lot applies to a lot of athletes and big professionals and whatever job that they're doing. I doubt that every football player or soccer player, if you are in US, loves working out every single day despite the weather, despite the time. I'm sure they force themselves to do it because they know that practice makes perfect. To finalize my today takeaway lessons is to say that he says that desire is what makes us take actions, is what empowers us, is what drives us to take actions. So you truly want to be someone that you aspire to be, you will take actions, you will change your habits, because eventually the habits make you who you are. To finalize, there are a lot of interesting charts, a lot of interesting formulas, a lot of interesting ideas in this book. I think this book is just packed with amazing ideas, but given the time frame that we have on YouTube, I couldn't go over each and every point. I do hope that you get your hands on this book and you read it for yourself. And then if you're already read this book, please do share what are some of your thoughts or your main takeaway lessons from this book. I love reading your comments. I love hearing your feedback. So please do share down in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching this video until the very end, and I'll see you next time. Bye!